Okay, I want to do a quick light output test of the Lupo Superpanel and see how it differed from its daylight setting to its tungsten setting and to right in the middle, which is around 4400 Kelvin. So I already did the test, but I'll show you it. So here at 5 feet, of course I'm going to be really bright here because it's a bright light. The hot spot, we're about 13.3 EV. And then if I come back here to 10 feet, so I got 11.3, yep, there's 11.3 EV right there. And then at 15 feet, we're about 10.1, 10.2 EV. So that's how it is for the daylight settings. When I did the tungsten settings, they were super similar. Like for 5 feet, it was 13.2 instead of 13.4. At 10 feet, it was 11.1 instead of 11.3. And at 15 feet, it was 10.1, which is the same as it was on the daylight. So at the most, there's a quarter stop difference between the daylight and the tungsten, but barely. So, and then when I did the 4400 Kelvin test, it was exactly the same as the tungsten. What's good about this is that the light output stays the same no matter how you dial your temperature in. So that way, if you want to like dial in a little warmer aspect to your shot, you don't have to worry about adjusting the output of the light. So that was definitely cool. Okay, so next I wanted to test the Socanland 100-watt 60-degree 1x1 LED panel. So one thing we're doing during this whole test is that we're leaving the camera exposure the same for the different 3 lights. So as you can see, now I'm much closer to the camera than I was before. I'm actually at the 5-foot mark, where for the Superpanel I was at the 10-foot mark. And this is the right exposure for me at 5 foot, and the proper exposure for the Superpanel was at 10 feet. So you already can tell that this light doesn't put out as much light as the Superpanel, which I knew it wouldn't because the Superpanel is just so dang bright. Okay, so but by the numbers, here the EVs at 5 feet is about 11.3, 11.4 EVs. At 10 feet, it is about 9.6 EV. And at 15 feet, it's around about 8.5 EV. The tungsten output of this is a little bit lower, so it's 10.8 EV at 5 feet, and at 10 feet it was 9.2 EV, and at 15 feet it was 8.0 EV. And at the 4400 Kelvin, at 5 feet it was 11.0 EV, so a little bit higher, and at 10 feet 9.4 EV, and 15 feet 8.2 EV. So this one is pretty similar in the color ranges you dial it in, which is good, so your exposure won't change when you change the light a little bit. But when you compare this to the Superpanel, this one is 3 stops less than the Superpanel was. So quite a bit less output than the Superpanel. Okay, so finally we're going to check out the F&V K4000s. Almost 1x1 panel. It's more like a 9x9 LED panel. This is the old F&V. It's just one we had laying around the shop. So I just wanted to test the output of this compared to the other 2. So as you can tell, I'm only like 2 feet away from the light right now. So as I said earlier, we're not changing the f-stop on the camera, so the f-stop is the same for all 3 lights. So for me to have a decent exposure of this light at the f-stop I'm at, I have to be like 2 feet away from the camera. Where for the Socanland, I was 5 feet away, and then for the Superpanel, I was 10 feet away. So that just shows you the output. And actually, when I did it by f-stops, this light is 5 stops dimmer than the Superpanel. So a huge difference there. But let's just look at the EVs here as I measured them. So right here at 5 feet, we're about 8.7. So we're getting about 8.7, 8.8 right there. 10 feet, we are getting about a 7.0, and at 15 feet, we're down to about a 5.6 EV. Okay, what's interesting in this light, when you change from daylight to tungsten, the output of the light changes quite a bit. So for example, in daylight, this one is around 8.7, and tungsten it's 8.0. But what's most interesting is that when you go to split in the middle, like around 4400 Kelvin, it goes up to 9.4 EV. So that's a big difference. It definitely changes the brightness quite a bit. So if you change the temperature in the back, you're definitely gonna have to either dim the light or change the f-stop on your camera. Definitely not a good thing. So personally with LEDs, I always like to put something in front of them. I never like the bare light like this. I think it's just a little too hard. So what's good about the more output you have from your LED, the more you can put a softbox or some kind of diffusion in front of it and still have the punch that you need. So that's what I like about the Superpanel so much.